What's up, guys? Welcome back to Modern Craftsman Monday.
Monday with my beautiful Guy Fieri voice.
We got John back on this week.
For better or worse.
John, welcome.
I literally thought you weren't going to say anything. I was like,
Yeah.
I can't just tee you up and it's not going to say anything.
Yeah, this podcast, we realized that John's, what he brings to the table, first and foremost, is his good looks.
We do talk about
that's
that.
why it's a podcast.
And then his work ethic and drive.
Mm-hmm. Number 2 and number 3. And then budget and schedule, I think we're 4 and 5.
Probably bottom of the list. The list goes
Really?
How
like
long's
11.
the list? 11. Jeez. Well, this week we don't have a guest. It's just the 3 of us. We had a little time zone mishap, so we'll be rescheduling him for another episode. But we dig into an important topic about comparing on social media. I think we started this podcast with the mindset that we weren't social media experts, but this is something that has come up in multiple conversations throughout previous guests. And Mike from Greenside mentioned it the other day about how it's easy to get trapped in the mindset of comparing yourself to what others are doing and how successful they might be. And you in particular, or yourself individually, may feel as though that you're struggling to keep up.
Don't do it. Stupid.
I just saw Tyler's story.
Don't compare. It's not a good idea. It is important, I think, and it's something that social's going to stick around. We all have young kids now, and ensuring that they understand the potential pitfalls of seeing utterly perfect human beings thrown in your face every single day, we might get out of this alive.
This podcast is brought to you by Duration Molding and Millwork. So listen to this. The folks at Duration are doing something unheard of in this economy. Thanks to increased production volume and production efficiencies, they're actually lowering the price of their beveled sidings. Who does that? Yep. With other products taking multiple price increases and having availability issues, you'll experience none of that with Duration. And more importantly, you'll be using the best looking and highest performing beveled siding out there on your build. To learn more about Duration Polyash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com.
That's kind of crazy, though. Everyone else prices skyrocketing and Duration's like, yo, lowering the prices.
Oh.
And our turnaround's quicker now.
Crazy.
Damn. Oh, yeah. Let me pull that up. Hold on. So yesterday we received a text message from Mike Connolly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Big Mike.
Greenside Design Build. Is that the company name?
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike. So I didn't have Mike's phone number saved, which is pretty much par for the course with me. I'm not very good at returning phone calls, text messages, DMs, and we get this very long text message from Mike that I then go into a separate text with Nick and John and say, who the hell is this? And then I find out that it's Mike. So maybe I should do you think he's fine with me just reading the text? No.
I'm texting him right now, see if he's around.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I guess that we could go back and filter his name out if he doesn't want to know, but let me summarize it. So basically, he had some free time, and typically when you have free time, you start thinking about things that you don't usually do during the work week. Your mind starts to wander, and he started to kind of compare himself to what other people are doing on Instagram and what people are building. And it seems like there's so many heavy hitters that are so successful right now, and every job's amazing, and they're making so much money, and new trucks and marketing and the best jobs and the best designs. And he starts looking inward. What am I doing wrong?
But he even said it was, he even compared against us, and we're friends. And he's like, he just got caught up in it.
Yeah, so, he had some downtime, and he's scrolling Instagram, and he's looking at what everyone else is doing, and then asking himself, why am I not there? Why am I not landing those type of jobs? Is it because of my market? Is it because of social media? And then he kind of realized that there's this entire, I guess within social media, you're always comparing yourself to somebody else, and you're always looking at what you're doing, and then this false depiction of what people's lives and businesses are like, and it can really rob you of a lot of joy or what you're experiencing in your own life. And then I think Nick or John ended up finding a link or an article basically on that exact topic, where I didn't dig into that article at all, John. I don't know if you did, but basically how much, like Mike said, how much of an emotional trap Instagram and social media can be, because you're just looking at the best of everything, and nobody's putting out they are to some extent, but nobody's posting their crappy projects. Nobody's posting their, when they have a bad month financially. They're just posting, hey, this is how amazing things are. Everyone's busy. Everyone has the best jobs. And you can start getting down on yourself. What was that article about, John?
Oh, I just read the subject line. That was it.
Per the subject line?
I definitely thought he said per the subject line. Like, listen, but did you say I only read the subject line?
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's you guys.
But I thought that it was a good topic to dig into, personal level, business level, that it's not always the healthiest thing to compare what you're doing, what your life looks like, to what you see on social media or to anyone else in general. I think that it's human nature to kind of look at what other people doing and say, hey, why am I not there? Why don't I catch this break? How come they get this job? How come their wife looks like this? How come their kids are succeeding in this sport? How come they got this start, or I didn't have that start, or my life's all difficult and my problems seem to be the only problems that exist, and everyone else seems to have this smooth path. And I don't think it's not the healthiest thing to do. You guys compare yourselves to other people a lot, or try not to?
I think I did for a long time, and I certainly still do, and I certainly like when Mike said that yesterday. I'm like, damn, dude, like I watch the stuff you build, and I'm like, why am I not building that?
Seriously,
yeah.
And it's and I know I keep talking about this whole like focusing on like opportunity and not problems thing that I read, and I think about this as it attributes to like influence and what other people are doing. And it's, and that goes for like, John, you said, you just said it, even like friends. It's like, I look at you, John, what you're doing, and Tyler, what you're doing. And like, there's days where I'm like, those guys got to figure it out. And I'm sure there's days where each of you feel the same way about, all, like each other. But I do think that more recently, I've had a better attitude about, I'm just going to stick to what I truly believe in and just keep going, moving in a forward direction. And I'm going to probably screw a lot of shit up, but I'm just going to keep working towards what I think is right.
I think.
Yeah, so
good.
Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, I've been, maybe it's lucky or just I'm stupid and I'm naive and don't see it, but I used social in the beginning so often to look at like Jason and Brad and Sheffy and these groups of small boutique companies that echoed the same thing that I wanted to create. So it gave me confidence. Unlike it's not robbing from me, but I was like, every time I felt like I needed to grow faster, again, comparing myself with Nick at the time, I was like, oh, I get why he grabbed these certain people and did this. And at the same time, like I needed that kind of, I want to say sounding board with those guys to be like, all right, I can stay lean. That is okay. Mm-hmm. And that's, maybe I was oblivious, but yeah, there's certain days where if you're having a bad day or everything's heavy, maybe social doesn't lift you up. It's like, God, it's always clean. Whatever they're doing is like, you look at the Fox group and it's like, have they ever had a bad day in their entire life? And like, would they post a picture for the holiday and it was like 6 horses, a pony, 2 dogs sitting completely perfect. And it was like, what? Like, do I need that? I couldn't like it.
It's such a mind fuck too, because that it's fake. That so much of it's all curated content. It's not, I'm not going to film my daily routine and just put it out there exactly as it is. There's filters. You're selecting what you're posting. You're trying, there's people who are trying to be as transparent as possible, and there's other people who are just looking to kind of generate this entire like cultivate this lifestyle or what they want their life to be, or this entire illusion of what their life is like.
Well, it's a false sense of popularity. We've talked about that.
Yeah, but you go into it and that. Like, I know that, I understand that, and then I'll be watching videos of somebody riding a dirt bike or skateboarding, and it's like, damn, they nail every trick. And I know that it's fake, that they're not posting their faults, because they will. Oh, they'll post bloopers, but you're like, oh my God, how do they nail that first time every time? Like, they're so good. Everything that they land is crazy.
Mm,
And it's like, they're probably only posting 1/10 of it.
right.
Or, hey, like, I posted this. I probably tried this 900 times before I got this clip of it. And that going in, but your mind, for some reason, like, doesn't believe it.
It's funny. I'm thinking of something specific, but it's like what you just said, Tyler, is that that they did that trick a dozen times, 100 times, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But when you're watching it, there's no evidence of it. But I think
Yeah.
of, Ken Block, the rally car driver.
No, I don't know him.
There was he's done this viral video called Gymkhana, where he basically drives a car through a city, drifting around the city, drifting underneath things and on the edge of a pier, and just absolutely crazy driving skills. But when you watch the video, it's completely smooth. It's all one shot. But what's interesting about that video is that he's driving, and on the course, there's literally hundreds of tire marks and skid marks and drifting marks. And when you watch that, for whatever reason, I watch it and I can there's evidence that this isn't the first time. And it's almost appreciated more because you're seeing the evidence and seeing how hard he's tried to get this shot completed. Where it's the flip side is TV and these videos that we watch, or the stuff we see on social media. It's no, this is the filtered version. Here's the best one out of the 6 photos I took. Here's the best, shot of my siding where you didn't see that I had 2-seater shingles line up. It's we filter through, our own eyes, and then and furthermore, when we share it with the public.
I think that's fine as well. That's all fine and good if you as an audience are comfortable with yourself and confident in yourself and have self-esteem,
Right.
because you can see that and you can use that as motivation to get there, right? Even if you understand that it's not real, be like, hey, I want to be able to get there. I want to be able to do that. The problem is, especially with, we look towards our kids and everything else, or younger men and women getting into this, where you see that and it's pounding down on top of you, because it just seems as if, this struggle in front of you to gain the knowledge and the expertise and the experience is so huge. It's so insurmountable. And then you open up Instagram and see somebody effortlessly doing something that you've struggled with for how long, and it pushes you down even further.
It's a slap in the face.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. There's nothing wrong with showcasing your best work. It's social media didn't make that happen. Social media just made it easier to see it. It's before that it was magazines. It's you weren't putting your okay work or your crappy work in a magazine. You were putting your best work, and it was the same thing. People will flip through a magazine like, man, they got their stuff together. It's I could never put a project in this magazine because I'm not there yet. And
Yeah, it's like a highlight reel where you see 10 amazing plays, and you could be a mediocre player
Right.
or athlete the rest of the time, and you had 10 amazing plays. Where take that out of context and only see that, and you're like, this is the best baseball player that's ever lived.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just by chance, on 10 separate occasions, they did 10 phenomenal things that were above average, and for the rest of their career, they're average. but it ends up being in the context. I know there's a specific video that was, I laughed because you see it was a guy doing like an enduro course on a dirt bike, and he comes up, jumps over a rock, turns his bike in midair, and like wheelies over a log all in one fluid motion. And I saw it on, like, somebody reposted it, and I was like, oh my God, that's so crazy, because you're like, yeah, somebody just happened to be there with a camera. And then you go onto the guy's page and he's like, what it looks like in Instagram versus what it was in reality. And he posts like his other attempts at doing that same thing. And the way that it was shot, it looked like he was on a race course and he's coming around. It just so happens somebody's at that turn and he just nails this crazy trick. And then like the actual picture based, like the one of his other attempts shows him launching up into the air, like snubbing his front tire on the log, flipping over the handlebars and going through trees. And like that's the reality of it, that's going to be 9 times out of 10 what's going to happen. And then you do catch on film that happening once, and like, oh, so he does that every time.
Right.
And you know it's not that, you know that's not the case, but that's just kind of how it presents itself.
It's in life. I mean, I remember I've watched Kevin Hart like not make it on these comedian shows, like, and then now he's one of the biggest stars in the world. But you look back and you're like, that took 10 years. Right. And you look at like some country music people that they've, start, like you've heard their song and then they don't make it big for another 15 years. And it's reality. There's that comment that I said before. It takes, 10 years to be an overnight success. And it's because people don't see all those years.
Which I think that's something I can appreciate now that I'm a little further along in that path. But I know, I do fear for my kids growing up, where I think at a young age, or even when you start something, you're not certain of yourself, or you don't have the self-esteem, the self-confidence that you're going to get through it, that it's going to get easier, that you're going to sort out what those issues are. Seeing that stuff could be really difficult, and could actually bring you down. And I don't think it's not the healthiest thing in the world to compare yourself to other people, or compare yourself to a standard that's unattainable to 99% of people.
I mean, that's why they got rid of likes, right?
Yeah.
They got rid of like buttons, and then there's so many filters beyond what we do for our business and our lives. Like I said, we texted back and forth, and I was like, I don't keep a real strict eye on my oldest. My youngest doesn't have social, but my oldest does, and dude, they're never on it. They're absorbing like TikTok useless videos. But I've watched, like, I'll go through every once in a while and just see who's following him or vice versa, make sure there's no scumbags. And even though they'll probably do a better job of hiding it than what I'm going to say. And I've noticed that all these kids, A, you want to make sure they're all private. And then B, almost all the kids from his grade that he follows, and they've deleted almost every photo they posted within the last 2 years. And there's nothing there. And it's kind of funny to see how it kind of picked up in the beginning, maybe 2 years ago. And now they're taking in the content, but they're
consuming it.
Yeah. As long as they're consuming decent content, I'm fine with that. I mean, we even the other night caught the girls, they'll be on YouTube, and it's not anything bad, but we just like, why are you watching that? There's other things that you can be doing, that you can be spending your time doing, where that's not where we want your brain space to be going. Like, there's so many better and we didn't have that when we were younger. The school's getting let out now, and my daughter she gets off the bus crying that school's over, because she's not going to see her friends, she's not going to be see her teacher. And I turned to her, I'm like, I don't know whose daughter you are, because the day that school let out, from the time I was 6 until the time I was 18, there was no better feeling in the world. I was like, yes, no more school. I get to get on my bicycle for the next 3 months and not be home until it's dark.
Yep.
And it's different for them now. They do live in a different world than we do. And I want to ensure that I don't think it's super healthy to compare yourself to others. I think that you can measure yourself against somebody else or chase somebody that's ahead of you to better yourself, right? So if you're racing people and you're the fastest racer, you're never going to get faster than that. The only way that you're going to get faster is if you've raced with people who are faster than you, who are better than you. You have to surround yourself with those people. And I think that doing that elevates you, it elevates everyone else. And that's a good thing, to kind of measure yourself against that in order to move ahead, or grow. But I think that measuring yourself just to see your self worth or how you stack up against somebody else just for the sake of doing so, or to see that they're doing better than you, or they have more money than you, or they have cooler projects than you, it's not healthy. And it's not fair to anyone. Like I texted you guys, no matter what way you cut it, there's no proper way to compare yourself to somebody else, because everything in your life has led up to today where you are and who you are because of a sequence of events that's completely unique to you and not a single other person in the world. Um, so I think, for me to compare myself to somebody who's the same scale as my business and does the same type of work, while it may seem convenient, is not an accurate comparison, no matter what way you cut it, because they have a different wife, they have a different family, they have a different financial capacity. Their parents left them more money, didn't leave them more money, are still alive. Everything's different. And comparing yourself to somebody else, it's just never apples to apples.
And they also have a different filter. I mean, I think that's knowing how they make the cake is the biggest part. And I think that, correct if I'm wrong, but I think I know we posted great things when we were, first starting out in social, but one of the things that did draw a crowd or people to our accounts is that we were genuine, and people saw that, and that we didn't hide it. And if things didn't go right on like when stories came out, it was the best thing because we were showing the behind the scenes of the photos. And and people want that popularity, and they don't ever want to give in and show, the nitty gritty or the behind the scenes. They always want it to be, cupcake and rainbows. But I think the reality is it is your filter. And if you appreciate it, because you know what it takes to go into that in the days and the grind and all that stuff that we all got, the Gary V potion. And now we're all like, we're over it. And there'll be another group of people that come along that hit that high, and they need that high in their career to get them through that next 5-year milestone. I don't know what it is, but I guess maybe it's just me being old, but it's you almost look at everything and go, like when I watch a movie, Nick, and I see them driving through a field and you can see the tracks from a movie before, like the scene before, it's like, oh, they did this a few times, like, or through the sand. You're like, you couldn't have raked it first. Like you couldn't have lied to me. Like that's what but it's knowing it. But my kids, I mean, my boys now, they look at it. They like how when they cut a scene and the guy's tie was like tucked into his shirt, and then the next scene it's not, that my boys eat that up. So, I mean, I think it's also for us, that article that was in the New Yorker, that was more targeted towards, how it shapes our identity for the kids. Because, I mean, for me, the biggest thing isn't posting images and it being fake. It's what you post. The shit that I said and did when I was younger was never written down. Everything was verbal. You talk shit, it was on the ice, it was gone, and it evaporated. You say something at school, it evaporates. Now, when you write stuff down and they have chat on their video games, and they have, an IG post, and you write something that you think sarcastic, but yet it's hurtful, that lives forever. Someone deletes it, they screenshot it, it's still there. It's someone captured it. That is the biggest lesson that I've had to approach with my oldest and my youngest, for that matter. It's just, knowing that, hey, they text a lot in FaceTime. They're on group chats. My youngest, hey, they jump on Zoom. It's crazy. They jump on Zoom, their school computers, and then they'll play a game on their iPads while they're all talking to each other on Zoom. And it's like, it's instead of like hanging out and going out to like getting penny candy, they're just sitting on the couch, vegging out, playing some mindless game, screaming at each other through the Zoom call. And but then they can write in the chat. And so every once in a while, you got to go through the iPad and go, hey, what's everyone saying? And just because it is I can't tell you how many times it's happened in my kids' grades where someone says something that they don't even know what they're saying and what they're implying, but yet one parent catches on, and then it goes into this whole thing because they just don't know. And it's just, again, that's our job as a parent, is to let them understand how the cake's made on social, and that, what it takes to go into it, what you're really seeing. And same goes for our businesses, that I think we try and say the same thing to younger people in this industry, or people that are struggling, is that, hey, jump on a call. The only reason why that we're where we're at is because we've also hit those milestones and those struggles and hit them every day. We're just confident enough, or dumb enough, or naive enough to talk about it.
I get that. I guess my worry is, prior to social media, where you have TV and you have magazines and the internet, and you needed, for example, a magazine, if you needed a model, or you needed an actor, actress in a movie, and you needed people photographing them, you needed editors, makeup people, all of this to create this perfect human who everyone's going to compare themselves to and look up to. And now that's so easy to do on social media with filters and with makeup. And now everyone can portray themselves as this beautiful 10 out of 10 person who's so talented and has a perfect life. And where does that leave the families and the kids who aren't a 10 out of 10 and who struggle? And now, instead of being able to surround themselves, or, like I said in that text, identify with people in the same position as you, or identify what makes you different, where you want to improve, now you're just basically having perfection shoved down your throat on a daily basis. I think that's the toughest thing, especially with our youth, where you have those formative years where, let's be honest, at 11, 12, 13, 14, you're awkward. Like, girls are awkward, boys are even more awkward. And now you have people who are 2-3 years ahead of them who are displaying themselves as these perfect people. And I think that it's going to be detrimental to the younger kids. If you look, we have a grown adult male who's falling into this emotional trap on social media, he's over 40 years old, right? How do we expect our kids not to fall into that same trap?
No, it's scary, straight up.
That's a tough one for me, especially when, we're all part of that. We're looking to put our best foot forward and convey the best work that we do, and our team and our jobs and what we're doing, to the highest level. But that's not necessarily indicative of what life is like. I know what I share on social from a work perspective, I like to be as accurate as possible. But I don't share all the headaches. I don't share all the time employee turnover, the mistakes. Well, and it's just because I don't want to focus on all that negativity. But it could be, I guess, you could get a peek into the daily operations of what we're doing that's a little more accurate than, just a finished photo of something.
That's true, though. You do manifest what you put out there. And I think if you're going to put negativity out there, I don't want to be met with it every which way. It's more of, it's finding that fine line where you're like, it's a work in progress. I just remember, I think some of the best things I had, years ago when I was posting stuff would be like, hey, we're going to pour concrete on Friday. And they were like still digging the hole. And then Friday would turn around. I'd be like, I use social as an accountability stick.
Yeah.
Where it's like, all right, I'm going to put, like, when I post my runs, I'm posting them not to brag. And I know it can come across like that, but it's more of like, no, like, you fuckers are going to keep me accountable that I'm going to run 2-3 times a week. Otherwise, someone's going to go, hey, in this kind of, I don't know, maybe I take it this way. It's like, hey, not running this week. And I'm like, oh,
yeah.
And that's probably not what they meant, but I really do. like we talk about, like, was it never split the difference, high anchoring and low anchoring certain conversations. And I think that's it, where it's, I tell my guys that it's like, hey, tell that client that, hey, it's going to get measured on Monday for a carpet in the basement. It's Thursday. Because guess what? Without you anchoring that spot, you're never going to call it in on Friday because no one's holding you accountable. And social media can do that with you guys. You know, we always go back and forth. It's like, yeah, I'm trying to do this. And it's tough. And I think we've all been at that coffee shop or that cookout where you tell a story, someone else one-ups it, and the next person one-ups that story until it gets to, it's a fake story. You know, it's like, you're like, you know, maybe you just need to shut up. And that was the end of the one-upping thing. And I think that's just in our world. But I think if we can look at it like, hey, how do I do this? And then how do I keep myself accountable on this thing? That's the beauty of it, is not always people post all finished photos because they want to get that popularity higher, whatever the algorithm is. But I love the industry. I love the nitty gritty. I love the inside out, the not, like, I just posted a picture the other day and it was like, I appreciate that. I want it to be my angle, my line of sight, what I appreciate that day at any given time. And if I'm not into it, then I'm not posting it. And that's the reality of it. Not because it's going to get, and we all look back. Remember social media in the beginning? It's like, oh, dude, that didn't get 100 likes in the first 10 minutes. Think that's a good post? Think that should stay up? You know, and it was like, and I look back now and go, the amount of time I even thought about that, I regret it. It's like, what was I, like, really? And
yeah, it does. It's not that important at the end of the day, and whether somebody likes you. I think I look at it, my content, and even what I'm putting out, is I want it to be authentic. And I have trouble. One of the reasons I don't like taking photo, where somebody gets me in front of the camera and says, we're going to record this, or I want to take a photo of you, or I need you to turn the camera on yourself and film it. It's not because I'm shy. It's because it feels inauthentic to me at that point, right? If you guys say, hey, we want to put a camera on you and walk around the job site, and we don't need you to turn and face the camera and address an audience, I would be fine with it 100% of the time. Where it's like, follow me around, whatever, I'll be myself. But as soon as you tell me that I have to face the camera and I have to speak to an audience that's imaginary in my head, it's so difficult for me because it doesn't feel like me. Like, I feel like it's forced, and that's not who I am. And I'm worried about what I'm going to say. And at that point, there's nothing authentic about that. And I think that you can open up to that. You can loosen up to that. And you can become more and more yourself the more comfortable you are in front of a camera. But that's the hardest thing, even with stories and everything else. I don't want to sit there and film myself talking about my job because that's just nothing I would do. Like, I would never, if there was no social media, I would never film myself talking about my job. Like, I don't want to film my face and talk to you. It's just, that's not me. So that's not what I put out. But I think that a lot of people on social, it's not about being authentic. It's about popularity contest. It's about putting out content for engagement and for likes and for the wow factor. And that's the type of stuff that I don't think is healthy for anyone to have kind of pumped into them on a daily basis.
But it's also, it's how you, I remember I used to do stories all the time, and I remember I'd get the comments, less face, more project. And I could have taken that and been like, what? I'll be like, you're absolutely right. Like, I guess I look back at all these little moments and I laugh, and I think that's what you have to do. And I think that's the right move, is not to be like, well, what's wrong with this angle? It's my angle, and then get all bitter about it. I think it's more like, then I go around like, you know what? And then you'd watch videos and be like, dude, that's more face than I need to see. And for anyone, like, not just my videos, but I think you're right. But it's also knowing, you know, again, how the cake's made. I remember we used to do the Kukin videos. Like, hey, here's a line, say this line and record it, and then we're going to mash it all together. And I remember talking to you guys and be like, hey, how many times did it take you? I remember my phone would have like 45 attempts. And I'd be like, I appreciate what everyone goes through now to try and make that one, like, Kevin O'Connor. Like, how is he bang
Just
out that
doesn't
intro?
feel like you. It doesn't feel authentic.
But it's like,
But
how do
It's
you
very
make it look
forced.
authentic? So it's like, I'm
right?
gonna keep recording it.
But that's what
Like,
Kevin's
that's
good
me.
at.
Yeah.
That's what Kevin's good at. It's like I can film with Doug all day, but the moment he says, "Hey, do this line," he knows it's going to be a shit show.
Yeah.
Or even put somebody else in the room with you. Change that up where it's like somebody that you're not familiar with or not comfortable around.
Right.
And now it's a completely different, it's an all new ball game at that point.
But it's, and John, I know you weren't in last week's episode, but Trent talked about this a little bit where it's like he talked about woodworkers and YouTube and how social media has basically narrated who they are and what projects they're doing to based on like what can fit into a clip. It's like they're not doing a more complex project, they're doing a lesser complex project so they can get a start, middle, end all in one clip, like the
Yeah,
HGTV
that's like,
model.
yeah, exactly. That's like network TV.
And it's, you know, and where and he was specifically talking about like how he just captures his canoe building, and one video will be him installing one piece of wood with glue, and that's it, because that's all he did that day. And it's, you know, but my reference to that is that, you know, it's like we get into these habits of shaping what we do based on the reaction or based on what we're trying to get out of it or out of social media.
Or how the platform will receive it. Not for
Yeah, I
like, remember
think
you used to say like, hey, 3-minute videos are the way to go. And I'd be like, okay,
right.
like the 3 minutes. And then like you do it. And then it's like, now long content's the way to go. And you're like, what? Like, I feel like an
Yeah, I
old
changed my
man.
mind a lot.
But no, but
I
it's,
mean,
I
it's even,
remember trying to be
But
like,
no,
this is my
it's
insight.
but but it's true. Like, you know, and Doug and I had a really serious conversation, I think a week or two ago, where I was just like, dude, like, he wants to go back to doing more produced, like creative stuff, which I love. And I want to just I want to completely ignore, like, YouTube metrics are so in depth. And it's like one of those things that him and I both look at. And I look at it out of pure curiosity. And he's trying to, like, you know, there's things that we're trying to do to manipulate, like basically watch time. And it's like you can watch these, you know, I forget what they're called, exit points. When if I'm talking in a video and I say, all right, we're gonna head over to our Cambridge project, that's an exit point. People will literally shut the video off right at that moment because I've given them a stopping point where it's like it's better to not do that. It's better to just all of a sudden show up at another job and they're like, wait, what the hell just happened? Because you never lose the attention. But
Well,
my
did you see social dilemma?
yeah, I did.
Like that's the reason why you keep scrolling. Remember when
Right,
social
the
was on in the
infinite
beginning,
scroll.
you'd hit the bottom and you'd be like, oh, I caught up, and then you'd get off.
Right.
And then I've watched it. Watching that movie was like, oh my god, like
Yeah.
there's so many
Everything's
things.
infinite scroll.
Yeah, and they don't want to give you that disconnect moment
Right.
that you instantly take,
Right.
instinctively take.
And it's, you know, so my point was that is I want to, like, I've never ran. There's probably a small period in time on Instagram that I decided to try to manipulate it in my favor. And what I mean by that, like do things to try to grow my following. And it was,
Yeah, you post
and
like 3 times a day.
yeah,
Yeah.
or like engage with people that I didn't really think like that weren't really my audience, just to see if I could get them to engage back. It was this short time, and it just first off, it didn't really work, and second off, it wasn't what I wanted to do. I was like, no, I actually just thoroughly enjoy posting one time a day, sharing what we're doing, keeping people updated, and stories were always fun for me. Like, because it was there was a ton of engagement, and I haven't done like my true stories in I feel like months. And it was
Same.
last Friday. I was on a brand new job site. We just finished clearing, not Friday, Monday, yesterday. We just cleared the job site, and I was checking in on a couple of new things. I'm like, dude, this is what I enjoyed doing. This was the whole.
Cut down brush. You didn't clear it.
We did. I'm not saying it was this like magical day. I'm just saying I was on a job and I was excited.
Trees.
Did I say cut down trees?
I mean, clearing
Right.
is. Sorry.
We're leaving the trees, John. We're building the house within.
Yeah,
The hell is it
good luck
called?
with that. Then they'll die in 2 years because you crush the
No,
suffocate the roots.
we're bringing. I don't know what these people are called. People that save
Arborists?
trees. No, isn't it
arborist.
something else like a is it horticulture?
Horticulturalist?
Yeah, we use an arborist. They give us basically you have to put a tree fence around the canopy, which you'll never do because it'll cut down too much space.
We're doing that in one job because the tree's 150 years old or something like that. But,
Sorry, just totally sidetracked. But yeah, you're right. You went back to do an old school story.
But yeah, it was like this. Like I wasn't thinking about it. It's like I fell in this YouTube trap of like, all right, let's figure out how to break it. And it's like I don't want to not produce 3 videos a week because I think that's fun and it keeps the ball rolling. But I don't want to get down this rabbit hole of trying to fit my projects into a video format that works. Or it's like,
but you know what?
No,
for the record, I watched that story because it wasn't produced.
Right.
Just for the record, like, love you to death.
I don't know why I'm saying right.
I was like, every time it's produced, I'm like, that I don't need to know that part of Nick.
Yeah.
But when Nick's walking around, that's the Nick I want to know what's going on.
It's just tough for. I guess it depends on the person. I lose interest once it's forced, and I think I don't know. Maybe it's definitely personality where I don't want to do something that somebody tells me or do it away because somebody tells. Like I want to struggle through it. I want to screw it up. I want to figure out why it's not right and then how to fix it. And I want that to be on my terms and not because somebody's saying you should do it this way. This is the easiest way. Or because like the metrics or the analytics say that this is what needs to be done. If I don't follow those rules and I fail, then so be it. But at least I enjoyed that process and it was me and it was organic and it was real throughout that process. As soon as I start trying to manipulate things to hit a certain formula, I'm just done with it. I'm over it. I like the artistic freedom. I had like the most dadly as an adjective, dadly. Father's Day, Rachel got me a new grill because we've had a grill since before we were married. The grill's probably so it's probably like 15 years old, and we're putting it together. And she knows that I don't like stuff like that. I don't like following directions where I have to build something based on the directions. I don't like baking because you follow a list and you go, and it doesn't give you any sort of artistic freedom to figure something out, to make it better, to screw it up. My brain just doesn't work that way. So I'm always miserable putting stuff like that together. I like to be able to kind of figure things out in a more natural way, kind of the way that my brain thinks. I look at directions and they're dumbed down sometimes so much that they confuse me more than just not following directions. Like I'm putting this grill together and it tells you, and there's no words, it's just pictures. And I'm like, that's even worse for me because I'm looking at the picture and I'm trying to make sense of the picture. I'm completely overthinking it. And it shows you to put screws in one side of the leg and then like adjust the leg before you put the other screws in. And so you can like bend it out and get your screws to go in the hole. And I'm like, well, no shit. What else are you going to do? Like it doesn't make sense to do it any other way. And I'm sitting there for like 30 seconds trying to figure out why the directions say that. What the hell does it mean? And it's so simple that I'm overthinking and I'm like, I don't even know what these directions mean right now. I don't, for me, that's not fun. Being told how I need to kind of cultivate and shape my content isn't fun. How I need to do my jobs isn't fun. I don't want to kind of go through the motions and have a paint by numbers that's not on my own terms.
You just described how I build off of drawings. I glance at them.
Painting by numbers or no?
I glance at the drawings and use them as suggestion.
Yeah.
And it's the same as when I put together IKEA or a grill. I'll be like, all right, let me look at the components. And like, I feel like I'm very lucky to be able to look at those things and go, I can guess it pretty much where everything goes and how I would go about it. And my kids think I'm nuts because it's like, when we put that decked thing together for the back of my truck, dude, I didn't even look at the directions.
I like the sorted out hardware. That's nice.
Yeah.
Where they put like bags of hardware and
A, B, C, D, E, F. And it's like,
I have Rachel handing me all the parts of hardware. And then she's like, oh no, I used all the screws out of bag A without going into bag C. And I was like, yeah, this is pretty much the equivalent of you baking. She goes to bake, and baking's very specific. It's a science, it's ratios and proportions. And she goes into it just winging it, where she's like, "Oh, I only had a third a cup of flour and I needed a half, but I did it anyway." And then the pancakes come out like soup, and I don't know what the heck happened. Like, what went wrong? It's like
I almost had
those
enough
are not
flour.
suggested. Like, those are not suggested. You can't alter them at all. It's a very specific thing. That's just how her brain works. But she actually prefers that because it doesn't leave room for interpretation for her, and she's perfectly fine with somebody giving her directions and say, do it this way. And that's not how I work. For me, that's miserable.
It's the same as like when I follow an account and I appreciate what they do and how they do it, and then you watch them then have a post and you know that they're trying to write something to get, they're soliciting action from someone like, hey, what would you do? What's
Yeah.
your Friday night like? And I'm like, dude, fuck off. Like, I'm not following you for that. Okay.
Yeah.
If I would DM you before I leave a comment, and it's like, and those are the moments where I hate social media. It's because someone's been corrupted by an algorithm, by the follower count. And it's like, I get that can consume you. I mean, it's just, why? At some point, it's the algorithm is either going to get you, and you're going to get frustrated, and the years of whatever you did leading up to that is gone. I think social media is, if it stays alive, is a great window for like my kids' kids to be able to see who I was, and maybe there's a chance that I influence them. That's the reason why I do it. And then on the flip side, it's because it gets us business.
Yeah.
Like it's like, this is the reasoning, and this is a great reward. Not the purpose doesn't exceed the reward. It's like, all right, I'm going to mess around with this. I'm going to try this. And I would love to do more. Honestly, I wish it was 6 years ago. I really do. And I could dive into the stories and not give a fuck on who sees it and what job I'm putting more time into and where my guys are and everything's rolling smooth. I would pay a godly amount of money to be back at that moment. But at the same time, I'm like, I know where I'm at. I know the challenges I'm facing, and they're going to reap a great benefit in the next 6 to 12 months, But at the same time, it's like, man, it ain't the same. I'm not doing the same stories.
I've always used social initially when it started. It's not that much different to this day, except for I'm not looking to supplement my workload at all. But it's always been with the sole purpose of anyone who's looking to hire me to question everything and anything that other contractors are bringing to the table for them. Like, I want you to second guess what you're doing, and I want you to ask yourself if it's measuring up, and I want your customers to then look at that and say, well, did so and so do this? Are they putting this much thought into it? Are they putting this much care into it? Is this much time being spent on execution? Is the job site this clean? Are they managing things this well? And I know that there's a lot of people on social media that think that that's me being arrogant, or that I'm saying that I'm better than other people. And it's not. That's me trying to basically give any potential customers a point of reference for what they do. And if they're looking at us and they're looking at someone else, I want them to question that someone else's process compared to ours. And it's not about me thinking that I do anything better, thinking, that it's anything other than just, hey, I want you to question and compare. Is it apples to apples? Are we getting this? And that's what I built my entire platform around. And I know that there's a lot of people. I mean, I've had people ask me, there's plenty of contractors out here who do really nice work, but then they don't promote themselves that way. They just do it and post it. And that's fine if it were just for me, and it would, I was just posting my work for the sake of posting my work because I wanted to get it out there. But for me, it's more so, hey, I'm going to send my customers there or potential customers there. Hey, look at what we do. This is what we do. And a lot of times they don't understand. So I'm going to articulate what it is we're doing, why I believe it's different, and ask yourself if so and so is also doing that, if it looks like this. Because if it doesn't, then that price, the two prices, the three prices that you got aren't necessarily comparable. And that's the whole reason of why I kind of approach it the way that I do. And you can love me for it or hate me for it. It's a business decision. It's not necessarily about me making friends or making people happy or anything else. It's basically paving the road for my future as a business owner and for work coming down the line.
I think it's smart that you're cognizant about the arrogance that can be seen. Because I think
Yeah.
arrogance is seen by people that aren't educated and aren't comfortable with what's happening. And
Right.
confidence is what's seen by people that know what's going on. And I feel like that like I teach my son right now, my oldest, my youngest isn't ready for it. He's close. But like when you step onto a soccer field or a hockey rink, you have to step on that field with a certain level of confidence and honestly swagger, arrogance, however you want to call it. It's just knowing the line. And I feel like for me, when I was younger, I had to have a certain amount of confidence where I have these answers. I look them up and I deliver them with confidence. And I know that with certain people, that will be received as arrogant. And I
Yep.
need to be cognizant of how that operates in my world, because I never want that to linger too long where it's arrogance where no, like I'm still the same person. And
Yeah.
I am very, very much cognizant. But when you say it with direct line of communication and you're to the point and you know exactly what's happening because you've done it a million times, because it's like breathing, that's not that's not arrogance. That's
Yeah.
just how you move and how you operate in a methodical way.
It's it's also, it comes down to the mental aspect of life and business and even athletics and sports and everything else. And I think that your ability takes you so far. You get to, I mean, even if you're looking at athletics, you get to the best of the best in the world at what they do. Everyone eats right. Everyone has proper diet. They exercise like madmen and women. There's bio From like a biological perspective, there's nothing better than them. Everyone is very close to being equal, and what it comes down to is having the mental strength to push through. Everyone's tired, everyone's hungry, everyone's exhausted and burnt out, and they've been doing this and it comes down to who has the most self-confidence, who believes in themselves the most. And that's not any different with what we do. I was just on Brad's podcast today, and he asked me a question about how do you have the confidence to be able to sell what you're doing to customers or have the conversation or tell them that you're not a good fit. And for me, a huge turning point was walking other people's jobs, where I go onto these jobs that I would look up to and feel as though I never measured up to. And now I walk those jobs, or I go look at those builders that were always so well respected and still are. And I go on, and while I'm not doing the scale of that work, I look at the execution compared to mine. And that gives me confidence to understand that what I'm doing is truly different than what most people are doing. And I'm able to do that because I stay very small and I control it. My work volume is small enough that I have hyper control over that. And I understand that. And that does give me an advantage to be able to execute at the level I do. And I know that it is different because I put myself out there and I've gone and I've seen it in person. And I'm being honest when I see what I do and I know what it looks like compared to what most people are putting out. I couldn't execute on the level that I do if I built an entire house, because it couldn't just be me. I'd have to depend on subs and everything else to perform. And then that takes more of me out of the equation. So it's more impressive for me to see people who are building on a larger scale and still executing and having an extreme high level attention to detail, because that's something that I know that I can't do. So if
Right.
you asked me, to build a house and to manage a house, I would be able to do that, but it would take me getting my feet wet and getting into that process and making mistakes and learning until I had the self-confidence and the business confidence to go into those being like, hey, I could build an entire house and I know that the execution is going to be above average, up there with the people who are the best at doing this. But right now, I wouldn't be able to do that. I couldn't sell a job like that because I don't believe in myself
Right.
in that way because I haven't done it.
So explain to me the other side of that walkthrough where I've walked through houses and go, all right, that's crap. But then I walk away going, but they're making more money than me. They're
It's
taking home
I
more money,
Because
and I
because we've
can't
all,
figure out how to get through
but
it.
I think
How to get
we've always talked about the fact that it's easier to be mediocre. It's easier to be, in the middle, and not striving for greatness. Like it's easier. It's the commodity. It's like,
are you in it to make money or are you in it to produce a quality product? Like what's
but I guess my catch is the rub is that when you realize
why
you
not just do that?
no. It's I'm undervaluing my skill, and there's moments in our careers where we're like, why am I doing this? What is the value? It's if I keep delivering for my clients and giving them an amazing experience, or let's say great experience and a great product, and I still go home to my mediocre house that I can't fix up, and that takes a toll. That's real life. That's like, I forget, I was saying to my architect last night, I was like, we're talking, and I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to get paid off, blah, blah. And, the guy's got more money than God. And I'm like, I'm still turning my AC window unit on every night. Like, I don't have the fancy, I guess I'd have, my old boss had this issue. He decided to live in the neighborhoods that we built in. And then he would have the multiple cars and the 5-car garage, but then he would then try and nickel and dime somebody for $500. It's like, but if you want to live that life, if we want to live this $1 million lifestyle that we show it with a big builder on campus on IG, the reality of it is we're not. Some of us are like, I look at Brad and I'm like, dude, that dude goes on vacation like every other week. Like he's got like 17 kids, like new pair of sneakers and socks.
I mean, this is how the conversation started, right?
How do I get there?
But you're comparing yourself to Brad, which is just that he's in a completely different market.
I know.
He's
I want the
differently.
cliff notes. I want to know how.
But it's not going to work for you. What he does is not going to work for you. So why it doesn't even? So for me, it's, are you happy turning your window unit on every night? If you're not, then what do you have to do so that that's something that's off your plate? Like, does Brad have the ability to go and coach his kids' athletics every season? Like, does he have that freedom in his schedule to do that?
So how do we, when we know that we're undervaluing our skill set, how do we do what you just said? How do we turn it around? How do we restructure? Because that's one of the hardest things to do is go, hey, I'm already squeezing out 14% on a job. How am I going to get 18% to be able to know I'm going to spend 20 grand on HVAC and this stuff? Or do I keep throwing those gimmies in for a client instead of being the bad guy saying, this was missed and I'm going to eat it?
It's baby steps, right? So I had to hang up with that for a long time and I didn't charge any extras. And it gets to a point where I'm not funding your project. And what you have to do is you have to find a customer where you start establishing those, where you want to be, right? So if it's extras, I'm going to start charging for, or maybe you have a threshold, anything up to 1,000 I'll cover, like 5,000 over the course of the job we'll cover. When it gets above that, that's when I'm going to start actually having change orders and everything else. And for me, the confidence in that is when I finish a project for a customer, I charge them every extra that was not in the scope of work, and they still love the experience, they still love the job, and then they call me back to do more work. Because then I say, I'm doing it right. Like, they still thought it was fair. I made the money that I need to make. They're happy with me. They're happy with what they paid. They're happy with the entire experience, so much so that they want me to come back and do more work. So for me, the confidence comes in from the customer, because if I'm happy and I made a ton of money, and the customer's unhappy, then that's not a win for me. If the customer's extremely happy, but I aided on the job and I just worked for 6 months and made pennies, then I'm not happy. But if I get done a job, I made the money that I need to. I felt like it was a fair rate. They felt like it was a fair rate. They didn't feel like I took advantage of them and they're calling me for more work. Then that's like, hey, I can take that model and I can bring that to the next job. And maybe you start making a little more money. You start not giving away things for free and you get past the point that you don't feel as though you're nickel and diming people, but you're getting compensated fairly. And then it's just a slow progression. You're not going to be able to go into your next job and say, I'm going to charge them for every single thing without kind of taking baby steps into that.
I think I go through the thing and go, in 5 years, I'll have the product that I'm delivering will match the fee structure I need.
Then that's what you have to do. If you don't feel confident that what you're charging for is worth it to customers and you haven't established that esteem within your product, then you're not going to feel right doing that. You're not going to feel like you are, and you probably shouldn't charge that. And it took a couple of jobs of me saying, like, I know that it's already expensive. I know that we push the budget. And then it's like, well, maybe I charge them for this one or two things and they have no issue with it. And I'm like, well, on the next one, I can charge them, like, here's my scope of work. This is what was over. And the more that you do it, like, and you are following through with your end of the bargain, you're still delivering the product that you believe in and that they believe they paid for, they generally don't have an issue with paying for that. The problem is when they start paying for things that they don't find are worth that number. So if your product isn't where you think it's going to be, and it's not where they think they've paid for and they're paying more, of course they're going to get upset and then nobody's going to be happy. But if you're knocking it out of the park and you have fair change orders to them and you're making the money that you need to, everyone's going to be happy. I mean, you'll get customers that aren't happy and they're not going to be happy for anyone. But I think that's so much more about experiencing those jobs and those customers still having a great experience with you and finding value in the dollar signs.
I think you also have to know who you are. Like Nick, you said you started taking the disc and to understand, what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are for management and everything else, and what you find yourself focusing on instinctively, not just kind of what you want to focus on. And I think that's key, Tyler, to what you're saying is like going back to when someone says to me, more project and less face, I could have taken that differently. And it's the same as when I go to a project. I've always been this mentality, and it took me forever to realize it through my entire career, is that I'm going to be the hard worker no matter what. And if someone gives me poor feedback, guess what? I'm going to work harder. Like there's guys, Kirk, that used to work for me. He'd get criticism or however you want to call it, a little bit of feedback, and he'd go into a shell and be an introvert for 3 days. There's other guys like Benny. When Benny got lit up, he goes, guess what? I'm going to work 7 to 3. You pay me for 8 hours. You want to talk to me like that? You get me for 8 hours. I'll never forget that. And he did it for like a full week, and it was awesome. And I loved him for it and still love him for it. And there's different people. I am not that person. I am the guy that if I get great feedback and they give me a bonus, guess what? I'm now filled up to the tank. I'm going 1,000 miles an hour. Guess what? If I get poor feedback, I'm filled up and I'm going 1,000 miles an hour. And I think it's knowing who you are. For the longest time, I think I let owners of companies I worked for take advantage of that. They would see it and go, all right, I'm gonna hammer this kid. And now I have to be cognizant that I have clients that will give me, feedback, and I'll go a step further to make it better because I'm getting shitty feedback. And even the good stuff is getting the same thing. And just, that's not the life I want to be. I want to be in control of that, not being controlled by it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Here's one of the drivers for me that I think is in the back of my head on every job. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I think about what I charged for it, right? And I'm not going to feel comfortable charging somebody a premium if I'm not delivering a premium product. So a lot of times I'm redoing stuff on my own dime because this is what I charge them for.
Right.
I'm not the type, and like I can ask you, are you guys the type where you charged $1,000 for something and you know that you delivered a $700 product? Are you just walking away with that extra 300 in your pocket like, hey, I made 300 bucks on that? Or are you going back saying like, this didn't hit the mark, I need to make this the $1,000 product that I sold them? Because
Yeah.
I'm the person that I'm always going to make it the $1,000 product or the $1,200 product for the $1,000 price point. I'm never going to walk away from a project and say I charged them a premium and I delivered a subpar product, and I walked away with extra money in my pocket. That's just not me.
And unfortunately, I think that there's a huge shining light on those guys that do that. And John, you kind of referenced it. It's like the guy that's doing a mediocre product and making more money. It's because they're charging a premium that is, from a market rate standpoint comparable to a product that you would put out, but they're delivering a lesser product and taking a larger markup on it.
But that's what they're focused on as well. They're not focused on
Cor-
getting to that premium product. They're focused on
Right.
making as much
Right.
as they can.
How little do I have to do for the maximum return? And
Correct.
unfortunately, and John, like that's what you're talking about. It's like you're uncovering the fact, or not uncovering, but like you're talking about the fact that you're not valuing what you are doing enough to then come in and charge a premium based on that. Where it's like I'm producing a premium product. I'm going to charge even more than the guy next to me. And yes, market might say it's the same 5,000 square foot, 4-bed, 3-bath, but it's not. And
it's just like the whole custom, slogan and all this stuff. It's Tyler, you brought up a great point of like leaving 300 bucks on the table. I feel like every time I'm doing everything, whether it's a soffit I posted the other day, it's like, no, if it's $1,000 budget, I'm squeezing $1,200 of product out.
right.
Or $1,200 of a detail out. I'm trying to get the best out of that craftsman or that carpenter or that plumber or that tile setter that day. I'm trying to like we want to do these classes at IBS and all that, and it's like we talk about mindset, and we also I have this whole sheet on, it's how you enter it. Like, what do you like when you call a guy that night and go, hey, you coming tomorrow? I open the door for him. Like we talked about social media, I just open the door for him to go no, instead of going. Like I tell my guys, send a photo of everything that laid out and go, see you tomorrow at 7. Guess what? I didn't open that door. Same difference. Right. Now the guy gets there. I am now instilling mindset on my job site where it's like, yo, you ready for today? Big fucking shitting, eating ass grin on my face going, what? You ready? You're doing some crazy shit today. He's been on a ladder doing a soffit, but he's doing a soffit detail that I freaking love. That we drew out on the zip tape that day, where on the last 7 houses, it's just been, all right, I'm going to get through today. I'm going to hit a bush light when I get home, maybe 12 of them, and then go back to hitting the soffit again tomorrow. But no, not on this job. I'm going to make sure that herringbone detail and how it carries up the rake. Dude's dialed in. This is his best day of his life. I'm exaggerating now, but it's like that's what I'm trying to instill in that. So, Tyler, to your point about that $1,000, I'm trying to make that guy's day his best day too. Not just the product, but the energy on that job, because I think it carries on to the plumber, to the laborer, to whoever's there. That if